2.7, finding equations of y. So we've looked at graphing, we've looked at manipulating linear equations. So now we want to be able to take some information, whether it would be from a graph or just given to us. Mainly, we're going to be just given the information here today and write an equation from that information. And so we can see that relation that's going on. Okay, so let's get into that. But we do have a little definition here that I want to look at real quick, and that is forms of linear equations. Okay, because we do have a few different forms. Based on whatever we're doing, we're going to use the different forms. Okay, so our first one is standard form. And that is AX plus BY equals C. Now we see it written this way a lot just because we have the X and Y on the same side. It's kind of the nature of the way things work out, especially in real world situations and word problems, those types of things. Now we don't usually work with this as far as writing the equations. So we're not going to spend time on that one, but it is a form that we need to know about, okay? Our second one is slope-intercept, which we already looked at. And that is that y equals mx plus b, okay? And then our last one is going to be a new way we've not seen before, and that is called point slope. And it's in this form, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Now, I know it looks a little bit uglier, but we're going to utilize that one today. The x and y that do not have a subscript on them, those are always going to say x and y. M is our slope, and then the x1 and y1 is another point. So we're given the slope, we're given some other point. We can plug that in there and then get y by itself for those, and it's going to spit out the answer for us. We just have to follow order of operations. So that's the one I like to use. Now, you can use slope-intercept form. I'm not sure if Mr. Blackman is going to talk about that one or not in your other course, but here I'm going to focus on point slope so that I stay consistent throughout. It's the one I like and I believe is the easiest to use. But you are welcome to use that other method using slope-intercept to write your equation as well. Okay. All right, so let's get into our examples. And so all of our stuff is going to be find the equation of the line. That is our directions for today of the line. So number one, m equals 5, and we have the point for 3. Okay. So what we're going to be given here is a lot of different styles. We're going to be given slopes, we're going to be given points, different information, and we have to then to determine the equation from that information. Now, whether you use slope-intercept or point slope, you need the slope and you need a point. So we're always going to need that information. So we need to make sure that we have the slope and we have at least one point in order to work our problem. Okay. So since we have that, we have a point, we have a slope, we can plug into point slope, which is what I'm going to use. Now, remember that this point is considered x1, y1. So x1, y1 there for those. So that's why I'm going to plug those in. So when I go to plug into my equation down here, I'm going to say y minus 3, because that's the y1, equals m, so 5 times x minus x1, which is 4. Now, I do try to be careful. I don't do a ton of parentheses here. I don't put every single thing I'm plugging in into parentheses, but I do like to put the y1 and the x1 in parentheses. The reason why I like to do that is because of this minus sign in front of it. This particular example, it wouldn't matter, but our next example, we're going to have some negatives in there, and that always causes a problem because we don't always do the double negative like we're supposed to when we don't put parentheses. So I would be in the habit of putting parentheses around those two things. Now the slope, you'll notice I didn't put parentheses there because it's an implied multiplication. There's nothing going on with it. It's a positive m to begin with, so we don't have to worry as much there with that. And I don't want to overload us in parentheses. All right, so now that I have this together, we do need it in y equals form. So I need to get y by itself. So first, I'm just going to bring down that side. So that makes -3. And then I'm going to distribute that 5 to get 5x minus 20. So 5 times 4 is 20 is where that came from. All right, so now to finish getting y by itself, I'm going to add 3 to that -20. So y equals 5x minus 17. It's -20 plus 3 when I move that over. And here is my equation. So that's what we're going to do every single time here with that. Plug those things in that we know and then work through it. All right, so let's do another one there using just the slope. So m is 2/3, and my point is 1, -2. Okay. All right, so let's plug in. Again, remembering that our 1 and -2, that is our x1, y1. Okay, so make sure I do that. Now, you don't have to write x1, y1 up there. I like to do that just as a reminder, especially for y'all's visual, so you know where I'm plugging those in. So y minus y1 is -2. You know, it's 2/3. X minus x1 is 1. Now you will have to deal with fractions. That is the nature of college algebra and mathematics. Fractions exist in there as an infinite amount of them. So we have to be able to work with those, okay? All right, so again, we need to get y by itself. So negative times negative, this becomes y plus 2. Now we're going to distribute that 2/3. So 2/3 times x is 2/3 x. 2/3 times 1 is a -2/3. Okay. All right, so now we need to add that or subtract that 2 here. You have calculators. You should be able to practice and know how to add a whole number and a fraction by now. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that math. If you're struggling with that, you need to come by my office or do a virtual office visit so that we can get that settled out. Okay. Make sure you get that done there for those. All right, so when I subtract 2 from that, we're going to get 2/3 x. It's going to be minus. So that's going to be 6/3 negative. So -2 and -6 make -8/3. All right, and so now we have everything on that side. So there is our results. Now again, the fraction part is the only thing you don't know there. Make sure you come by and see me, see one of the SIs, and get that information so that you can do those pieces, okay? All right, so number 3. So here, what if we have 0.14 and the 0.56? This time we have 2 points. Well, I mentioned earlier, we have to have at least 1 point, but we also have to have slope. So if we do not have slope, we need to get slope. And we can do that here using our slope formula, okay? All right, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do my slope formula, which says we have x1, y1, x2, y2. Remember, slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm just kind of put those parentheses there like we did before. So y2 is 6, y1 is 4, x2 is 5, x1 is 1. So that's going to give me 6 minus 4 is 2, 5 minus 1 is 4. So we get 1/2 as our slope. Okay? Now that we have our slope, we pick one of our points. Well, I've already got one labeled as x1, y1, so that's going to be the one that I use. So y minus y1, which is 4, equals m, 1/2 there, x minus x1, 1. Now notice, I still have an x and y in my equation. I didn't plug those things in, okay? Don't do that. Make sure that you plug in the x and y there for those, okay? All right, so now we got y minus 4. We get 1/2 x minus 1/2. This time we add our 4 over. So y equals 1/2 x. So negative 1/2 plus 4. Well, 4, that is 8 over 2. So negative 1 plus 8 is a positive 7 over 2 for that one. Okay, and again, it's just a fraction. So if you have some struggles with those fractions, come and see me. All right, let's do another one of those. So what if we have -2, -3, and -4, -6? So very first thing we need to do there, we need to find slope. So m equals, I always like to, if you remember, put those parentheses there, because especially here, I've got a ton of negatives that I need to be careful with. We've got our x1, y1, x2, y2. So y2 is -6, y1 is -3, x2 is -4, and x1 is -2. All right, so -6 plus, that's what that double negative means, 3. So -6 plus 3 is -3. And then -4 plus 2 is -2. Negative over negative makes positive 3 over 2. And again, we're going to use that slope with that first point because it's already labeled as x1, y1. All right, so y minus -3 equals 3 over 2 times x minus -2. All right, so this becomes y plus 3 equals, we're going to distribute here, so 3 over 2x. And we got to remember this double negative really means plus. So 3 over 2 is positive. This is going to be positive, so plus. And 3 over 2 times 2 is just 3. Because it becomes 6 over 2, which reduces to 3 for those. Okay? Now when we subtract our 3 to the other side, y equals 3 over 2x. And these 3's cancel out, so it gives me a 0 over there. And that is my equation. Okay? Right. So those are what you're going to do. And that's what you're going to need to show on all these problems. There's really not a shortcut to that. So I'm doing it about as fast as I can with those in the least amount of steps. So you're going to need to do the same. Yeah. All right, we got a couple more here. So number 5. We're going to go through the point -6, 2, and is parallel to 3x equals 9y plus 2. Parallel to that equation. Okay? All right, so as I stated before, we need the slope and a point. Well, we have the point, but we currently don't have the slope, but we can get it. It says parallel. That means that the slope has to be the same as the slope of this equation. So if I can find the slope of this equation, then I can get the slope for my new equation. Okay, so that's what we're going to do first. We're going to take this equation. I'm going to rewrite it so the y's first. So 9y plus 2 equals 3x. I just switched sides so that my y was on the left-hand side. It's just where I like it. And I'm going to get y by itself here. Okay. All right, so we need to subtract that 2 over. So 9y equals 3x minus 2. And now I'm going to divide everything by 9 and reduce. So 3 divided by 9 reduces to 1/3 x. And then 2 does not reduce when I divide by 9. Okay. Now, what does that mean? Right here, that's my slope. Okay. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that slope. I'm actually going to write that in a different spot here. I'm going to use the slope. M equals 1/3, and that point, -6(2), to write my equation. Now, the biggest mistake that I see students do is you stop right here and you write this in, and you'll get the problem wrong. The reason is this is not a new equation. This is just me rewriting this equation. I have to be parallel to this, okay? And so we're going to do that. All right, so that means y minus the y value there, which is 2, equals 1/3 x minus -6. So that gives me y minus 2 equals 1/3 x. That becomes plus 1/3 times 6 is 2, so positive 2. Now I need to add this y over. So y equals 1/3 x plus 4. And there's my equation. Now again, that is the shortest way to do that problem. You need to show both parts. You need to show getting y by itself so you find the slope. Then you need to actually find the new equation. So make sure on these parallel and the next problem, which talks about perpendicular, you show both things. Don't stop over here. You're going to get the problem wrong. Okay. All right. Number 6, let's look at that perpendicular that I just talked about. So we want to be using the point 2, 5 and perpendicular to 2x plus y equals 3. So 2x plus y equals 3. All right, now, even though perpendicular slope is not the same, we still have to look at the slope and determine it from this slope over here, okay? We're going to talk about how to do that in just a second. So let's find that slope. So 2x plus y equals 3. I'm going to subtract this 2x over, so y equals -2x plus 3, okay? Now, parallel slope means use the same thing. So I would use -2 here. But for our purposes, for perpendicular, we needed to multiply together and give us -1. Well, to make that happen, what you do, if this is a fraction, we would just flip the fraction and change the sign. But since it's not a fraction, we need to make it a fraction. So we're going to put this as over 1. So the slope I want to use, I'm going to flip that over and change this from negative to positive, okay? So again, we want to flip that over and change the sign. So if it was positive, we would make it negative. Since it's negative, we made it positive. And we flip that fraction every single time. Then we use that point 2, 5. Okay? Now we can go y minus the y value equals 1/2 x minus the x value. All right, so that gives me y minus 5 equals 1/2 x minus 1/2 of 2 is 1. We add our 5 to the other side. And so 1/2 x negative 1 plus 5 is a positive 4. And there is our equation. Now again, that is the fastest way that we can do those problems, okay? All right, so you want to make sure you get in early on these. You see that you got to kind of think through some things and tell what's going on there for those different pieces. What is the difference between parallel and perpendicular? Do I need to find the slope? Do I already have the slope? Those types of things when you're looking at them when writing these equations.